The observation deck of the Galactic Unity Station hummed with the low murmur of a dozen species conducting their daily business. Commander Thexral, a towering Crithian with scales that shimmered like oil on water, stood with his forearms crossed in what could only be described as military disapproval. Before him, Seren leaned casually against the reinforced viewing port, her human frame small compared to most galactic standards, yet somehow taking up more presence than her size suggested. "You don't understand what you're asking," Thexral rumbled, his translator implant rendering his clicks and hisses into smooth galactic standard. "The Velkari cubs are not controllable. They're feral, instinct-driven. Their neural pathways won't fully develop for another 3 cycles. Until then, they're essentially wild animals." Seren smiled, that peculiar human expression that never quite translated properly across species. "With respect, Commander, I've read the reports. I know what I'm getting into. Reading reports and experiencing a pack of 30 adolescent predators are vastly different things, human Seren." The commander's tail lashed once, a sign of agitation. "The Velkari cubs have already injured 2 handlers this week. We're keeping them in the lower cargo bay because nowhere else on this station can contain them. The adult Velkari won't even try to manage them anymore. They say it's tradition to let them find themselves before maturity." "Then it's a good thing I'm not Velkari," Seren replied, pushing off from the viewport. "And I'm not here to manage them, Commander. I'm here to teach them." Thexral's eyes, all 6 of them, narrowed simultaneously. "There is a difference?" "All the difference in the world." The lower cargo bay was a modified habitat, hastily assembled when the Velkari delegation had arrived with 30 unexpected younglings. The cubs themselves were magnificent creatures even in their immature state. Quadrupedal, covered in dense fur that ranged from deep crimson to storm cloud gray, with elongated snouts filled with teeth designed for rending, and eyes that glowed with predatory intelligence. When Seren entered, they noticed immediately. 30 pairs of luminous eyes turned toward her, the air filled with growls, chirps, and the clicking sounds that comprised their native language. Several cubs prowled forward, hackles raised, testing this strange new element in their domain. Seren stood perfectly still. The lead cub, larger than the others, with a distinctive white stripe running down his spine, approached first. She recognized him from the files. Vrek, the most aggressive of the pack, responsible for both handler injuries. His lips curled back, revealing rows of developing fangs. "Hello, Vrek," Seren said softly. The cub froze, not from the words themselves, but from something in the tone, the posture, the absolute calm radiating from this tiny creature that should, by all rights, be running in terror. Humans had a peculiar place in galactic society. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest, neither the most intelligent nor the most technologically advanced, but they had evolved as pack hunters on a world that had tried very hard to kill them. And somewhere in their genetic memory was an understanding of hierarchy, of body language, of the unspoken rules that govern social predators. Seren moved, not toward the cubs, not away, but to the side, claiming space without threatening, present without challenging. She sat down on the deck plating, cross-legged, and waited. The cubs circled her, curious now rather than aggressive. Vrek maintained his position at the front of the pack, but his hackles had lowered. Seren met his eyes, held his gaze for 3 seconds, long enough to acknowledge, not long enough to challenge, then looked away. A chirp of confusion rippled through the pack. "I know," Seren murmured. "You don't understand what I am. That's okay. We'll figure it out together." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a simple object. A red ball, synthetic rubber, about the size of her fist. She held it up, let them see it, smell it. Then she threw it. The effect was instantaneous and predictable. Every cub bolted after it, a tumbling mass of fur and claws in enthusiastic chaos. Vrek reached it first, clamping it in his jaws triumphantly. "Good," Seren called out. "Bring it here." Vrek, of course, did not bring it. He ran in the opposite direction, the other cubs giving chase. Seren smiled and waited. It took 15 minutes, but eventually curiosity won. Vrek approached, the ball still in his mouth, wondering what this strange creature would do now. Seren held out her hand, palm up. "Drop it." Vrek tilted his head, considering. Then, perhaps understanding the implicit trade, perhaps just wanting to see what would happen next, he opened his jaws. The ball fell into Seren's palm. "Good boy," she said, and threw it again. Commander Thexral stood in the observation booth overlooking the cargo bay, watching through reinforced glass as the scene unfolded below. Beside him, Sub-Commander Iril, a crystalline Thexian, pulsed with confused colors. "She's been in there for 3 hours," Iril noted. "The Cubs haven't attempted to harm her once." "Curious," Thexral agreed, though his tone suggested deep suspicion. Below, Serene had moved to what she called formation drills. She had arranged the Cubs in loose rows using nothing more than gestures, vocal commands, and an apparently infinite supply of treats from her pockets. The Cubs, previously declared uncontrollable by every expert on the station, sat in relatively straight lines, attention focused on the human. "Watch this," Thexral said, activating the cargo bay's internal speakers. "Human Siren, we're coming down to evaluate your progress." The commander opened the bay doors with authority, striding in with Iril trailing behind. He had expected chaos, or perhaps to find the human cowering in a corner, while the Cubs had lost interest. Instead, he found something that made him stop mid-stride. The Cubs had assembled into 3 neat rows, sitting at attention. Vrek stood at the front, his posture alert and proud, and as Thexral entered, Siren gave a single sharp whistle. As one, the Cubs raised their right forepaws to their brows in a gesture unmistakably learned from human military tradition. A salute. Thexral felt his translator implant struggle to process the sound that emerged from his throat, something between a gasp and a battle cry. That's impossible. Their neural development isn't, they can learn," Siren said simply, walking to stand beside Vrek. She reached down and scratched behind his ear ridge, and the uncontrollable predator leaned into her touch with a contented rumble. "They just needed someone who spoke their language. You've known them for 3 hours. Commander, humans domesticated wolves in less than a generation. We turned wild predators into companions over thousands of years. And we did it through mutual respect, clear communication, and understanding what motivates them." She gestured to the assembled Cubs. "These aren't wild animals. They're young people trying to figure out their place in the world. They just needed structure, consistency, and someone who wouldn't give up on them." Vrek chose that moment to break formation, padding over to Thexral and sitting directly on the commander's feet, looking up expectantly. After a moment's hesitation, Thexral reached down with one of his 4 hands and awkwardly patted the Cub's head. A deep purr emanated from Vrek's chest. "I've been a military commander for 40 standard cycles," Thexral said quietly. "I've led troops across 3 sectors, managed diplomatic crises, overseen complex operations. And you're telling me I was outsmarted by a throw-and-fetch game?" Siren's smile widened. "Commander, humans have been playing fetch for 10,000 years. We've had a lot of practice." As if to punctuate her point, all 30 Cubs suddenly broke formation and swarmed Siren in an avalanche of fur and happy noises, seeking attention and treats. She laughed, disappearing briefly under the pile before emerging, slightly disheveled but grinning. "Besides," she added, "they were never the problem. They just needed someone to believe they could be more than their instincts. That's pretty much the human story, isn't it?" Commander Thexral watched as the uncontrollable Cubs organized themselves back into formation at Siren's gesture, and found himself wondering not for the first time why humans had such an uncanny ability to connect with species they'd only just met. Perhaps, he thought, it was because humans had once been the Cubs themselves, small, vulnerable, living on a dangerous world, and they'd never forgotten what it felt like to need a pack. "When can you start training sessions with the rest of the station's youth programs?" he heard himself asking. Siren's laugh echoed through the cargo bay, followed by 30 delighted Cub voices joining in harmony. "Tomorrow works," she said, "but we're going to need a lot more treats.